Hey, all, welcome back to another edition of Big Guy Fantasy Sports Fantasy Football Consistency Show. I almost said the Fantasy Football Expo Show because I've been doing a lot of those, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But tonight we have uh, he's always special because he is special, but he's not a guest because he's also part of Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Our own Colby Conway. We don't see him often in the summer, but we get to see him this week. He gets to go into his Scott Fish Bowl this weekend after Ron and I have done our draft. So, Colby, how you doing? Are you all ready for this weekend's extravaganza? Where are you drafting at this week?
I am. I'll be heading up to, I guess, over, maybe a little up. I don't even know. Heading over to Charlotte. So a couple hour drive. Get to make my way to Charlotte for the weekend. We got the Airbnb booked. So wife and dog and I will be heading up. The brewery we're drafting at, though, doesn't let dogs inside. And our plan was my wife was going to walk the dog around inside in the air conditioning, and I was going to draft, but I don't know if that'll be the plan now. So I don't think my dog wants to hear it, but he might be stuck at the Airbnb for a couple of hours. But I'm excited. If nothing changes, I'll have pick 9. So it'll be interesting to see what cards I am dealt at the back half of the first round.
Yeah, as you and I were talking off air for everybody out there, but who knows about the Scott Fish Bowl and how the draft's been going down. There is no predict. You just can't predict number 9. You can't predict anything. You can't even predict number 1 in these drafts because you've got 2 quarterback leagues. You got super flex. You've got kickers who score as many points as the top 30 players. You've got punt returners and kick returners who earned more points last year than CD Lamb did and Marvin Mims. So it's just a crapshoot. And that's what makes it fun. We do it for charity, Scott Fish Bowl, all about fantasy cares, all about raising money for Toys for Tots for the kids, hoping to hit $500,000 this year. So we're very excited. Hopefully we'll continue that push. We had a hell of a time in Cincinnati. Hats off to John Bosch for his help there. And Colby, we're going to take a look at wide receivers. Now, wide receivers in the Scott Fish Bowl is pretty normal. It's PPR, nothing too crazy. I think maybe they do the first downs thing, but we're just going to focus on that 1-point PPR, typical scoring method in most leagues. And, last year we had some unique consistency in the fact that we had 100%er. We don't get them too often. Last year, Tyreek Hill, second in total points, missed 1 game, and still 100% perfectly consistent. Not too far behind at 94% with CD Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown, both number 1 and number 3, respectively, in total points. So, I've seen CD Lamb get picked as the first receiver off the board. That's what a lot of people are doing. I'm picking Tyreek Hill. Little bit about the holdout for Mr. Lamb. I don't think he'll make it. I don't think he holds out, but we'll see how that all comes down. There's a lot to be you got to look forward to in Lamb again this year with Dak Prescott looking for big money as well. But Tyreek is Tyreek, and anytime he touches the ball, he's gone. So as we look at, let's just kind of focus on this top 5 because I feel like there's almost a gap because it's Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Those 5 seem to be the core 5 that go maybe not exactly in that order. I've seen them in different ways, but what are your thoughts on those? What are you looking at? I mean, I know we have it, I have it ranked in the book with Tyreek first. But I know you like CeeDee Lamb, I think, as well. I do too. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I'm stuck with CeeDee Lamb, I'm not going to complain. But give me your thoughts on those top 5. Any of them you have a little bit ahead of the others? How do you look at that top 5? And if you're picking who are you putting ahead of maybe some others, especially that Chase, Jefferson, St. Brown, because I feel like CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek might even be a little bit above them from a tier standpoint at this point. Your thoughts?
That's the clear tier 1. That's just what it is. You're splitting hairs amongst those 5. I mean, you look at it last year. I mean, Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, and Amon-Ra were all 1,500 plus yards with double-digit touchdowns. Like, You know what you're getting from those guys. The one thing that's kind of interesting, I'm not saying it's something, I'm not saying it's nothing, but I'm kind of saying it's something. All 5 of those guys are no stranger to the slot.
Right.
None of them are true. They are alphas, but they're not 90% routes run on the perimeter. They go on the inside. They will make the team exploits them in those matchups. And all 5 of those guys get into the slot a good bit. It's something that's interesting. And maybe when you're looking beyond those top 5, when you're looking down a little bit farther as we get outside of like the top 5, maybe if you're looking at someone who's predominantly outside versus someone who does get into the slot a little bit, maybe you look at something like that. But for ultimately with those 5, for me, I've done a couple of best ball drafts over on Underdog.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually taken both Chase and Lamb and Amon-Ra ahead of Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
It's just maybe it's differentiation because I know I'm probably going to do 30 more drafts and end up with Tyreek Hill at some point anyway.
Right,
so
right,
maybe
sure.
I'm just going from there. But I think for me, if we're looking at it, and again, we're splitting hairs. It's like we're talking like love, really, really like, and really like amongst like the 3. That's what we're looking at. For me, I'd probably go Lamb, Chase, Hill. But again, we're splitting hairs. And if you get any one of those 5 like on your team, enjoy the wide receiver 1 numbers and don't even think twice about it.
I get you. I know you do a lot of work over at Fantasy Alarm and you do a lot of work with matchups and stuff. Talk more about that slot position and where do you have numbers that show the fantasy advantage per se in the slot positions for like average points per game, by slot versus outside kind of stuff? And if you don't have that at your fingertips, I put you on the spot, but I know you do a lot of work at Fantasy Alarm with that kind of stuff. And if we can come back to it if you want, if you still want to just look, and I'll keep talking.
No, I mean, I can look a little bit. I know Andrew Cooper just wrote a really good article over at Fantasy Alarm. I'm not trying to do plugs for other.
No, that's fine.
There,
I mean, we love Fantasy Alarm as much as they love us. So
definitely look at it. But one of the things I think I've noticed is if we're going to, I know we're not allowed to stereotype anymore because that's how you get canceled. But a lot of times it's smaller slot corners. That's just what it ends up being. They might be a little bit quicker, but they tend to be a little bit smaller. And there's something that we see with these teams. They are moving their alphas into the slot. For whatever reason, if they think they can get a better matchup, maybe it's something. Let's just think about the field. The field's this wide, right? If I'm over here, I only have so much room I can go. Whereas if you put me over here, I have all of this. Maybe it's just because they have more of a full route tree. There's less space. The perimeter corners get to try to use the sideline as their friend. Whereas maybe in the middle of the field, you can't. You're passing off. You basically have a guy like CeeDee Lamb running with someone covering him, trying to avoid his own defenders in the same thing. Like maybe it's something along those lines. It seems to be an overall advantage. I don't know how else to word it. Is it the matchup?
No. And that's exactly what I was looking for and I assumed I was hearing from you just originally was just, they put the bigger, taller receivers, like you said, the alphas, whether it's Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, those kind of folks. I assume same thing.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably move into the slot a little bit. Like we actually get it if we're going to kind of talk about Philly a little bit. It's why I'm leaning more Devontae Smith this year with Kellen Kellen Moore coming over to call plays. He favors the slot. But if we look last year, I'm looking over at fantasypoints.com. In terms of slot, receiving yards from the slot, CeeDee Lamb was 1, top 5 receiver projected this year. Amon-Ra St. Brown was 2nd, top 5 projected receiver this year. And when you look at it, as I'm looking here, their catch rate for both of those dudes was 70+%. When we look at other guys, Tyreek Hill goes to the slot and he's getting 3.4 yards per route run, 9 yards per target. Like, I think they can do more with them from there. And I think that's the key. And ultimately, when you look at it, so like for Tyreek Hill, let's see, I'm looking at this here. Expected fantasy points per route run for the slot. He's at 0.66, Amon-Ra 0.5, CeeDee Lamb 0.5. And those of guys who are actually getting targets just happen to be so much higher. And then you also have like Jalen Waddle's up there. There's Justin Jefferson. Right. There's something with the matchups, whether it's the corner or if you think about it, if you were to ask anybody, name your top 5 cornerbacks in the league. We all predominantly go to perimeter corners. Not as many come into the slot because a lot of times dudes get pigeonholed into being a slot corner, just like dudes get pigeonholed into being a slot receiver. So there's an advantage, and teams are exploiting it, whether it's just go check out the article from Coop. He talks about it a lot, but that would be kind of my anecdote.
Oh, that's great stuff. Great stuff. Let's move into that second half, or the rest of the top 12. So right now, we have Puka Nacua, AJ Brown. Trying to remember my list. Here we go. Gary Wilson, Stephon Diggs, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman. Of those guys, any of them, if you're going to put maybe one, your 1, 2, 3, top 3 of those ones in that area, which ones do you like the most? Now we have a couple guys we just have one guy, I guess, that changed teams, and that would be Diggs. Give me your thoughts. I know you're a Texans fan, so I'll let you even fill in a little bit on that. I'm really into Diggs. I know you've been complimenting me on my picks. I don't know if you're doing it as a Texan or you actually did believe that he's going to have a good year. But talk about Diggs in Houston. I like him because, one, I think he'll give Stroud, CJ Stroud, a pure veteran. Nico Collins is a very good player, no question. But that pure veteran presence is going to help him, especially if he's on the run, trying to make plays. But he's playing for a big – he wants to get paid. He wants that big contract. He's getting up there in years. If he doesn't do well, this could be the end for him. I feel like he's really going to bust his butt out there, try to make something happen. Am I just believing that for the sake of he's going to do well because he wants more money, or should I not be thinking that and they're going to throw the ball to Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Noah Brown?
Money talks. They're all out there trying to get paid, I think. So I do think there's a lot of motivation there. And I, again, don't want to stereotype or make an assumption, but from past conversations, Diggs values getting paid, as most dudes should. So I'm right there with them.
I think
know your worth.
Others, but yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, you want to be invested in the Houston offense. It's crazy to say that, because usually I've just done it every single year as a blind fan, but now this year there's actual legitimate juice behind it.
Legitimate, you got to be.
But the thing I think that's going to happen, there is going to be, I think we're going to be happy with the fantasy points that all three of them put up in Tank, Nico, and Diggs. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not maybe as consistent as we thought, because you have three dudes, and you got this. Nico established himself as an alpha last year. Diggs is a proven alpha for multiple years in the National Football League, and Tank Dell is Stroud's best friend. That just is what it is. He went on that one podcast. I don't remember which one it was, but he literally had the whole NFL at his disposal. He drew up a play that was for Tank Dell out of the slot with Jamar Chase and other dudes out wide. Cannot estimate Tank Dell. For some reason, he's just a monster in the red zone, despite being 5'3". He just somehow is always open. So
always open. Okay.
I like getting any one of those three receivers. Okay. You can make the argument of why take Stroud or why take Diggs or Nico when you can just take the cheapest of the three with Tank Dell, or you make the art, you pick one and you roll with it. I'm getting a lot of Nico Collins. That's just the one that I've really settled in on. He just got paid and he's still continuing to work. And they said he's been really good, at least so far, in some of the reports from the OTAs and stuff when he was there. So I'm okay with either one of them. On a lot of drafts I've seen, Nico's the one that costs the most, and Diggs actually falls in a really nice sweet spot. So I have a lot of Nico. If I've missed out on Nico, I've gotten Diggs, and I have one very proud best ball team on Underdog where I got the Stroud, the Diggs, and the Collins stack. And that one is I hope it's gonna be so much fun. But that's kind of where I fall in there. Some of those other guys, Devontae Adams and Michael Pittman, I don't have much of. Good talents, just don't love. I love Anthony Richardson. I'll talk about it up and down this year. I love him a lot. I love what he could do and potentially break fantasy. But last year, with the couple games that Richardson was in there, the targets were a little sparse around. I can see them being a bit more run heavy. So for me, it's I'm going to pay up for Olave or Garrett Wilson, or I'll just sit back and wait for a Drake London, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp instead of an Adams or a Pittman. So I really like the top 10. That 11 to 13 is I'll probably just hang out till the 14 in the back half of or I guess the mid to late teens, but a lot of good options there nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, I'm a big AJ Brown fan, was last year, paid off pretty well for me. You know, Puka, I have at 7, but I'm starting to also move up Cooper Cup each time I kind of see and hear good things. So, yeah, so I think at some point Puka might start moving down and Garrett Wilson and some of these guys in Lobby maybe moving up.
I will have more Cup this year than Nakua because I don't know if it was on Cooper Cup's new podcast or where he said it. It might have been on that behind the grind thing that the Rams are doing or whatever. But he basically, McVay said it and Cup said it. He played all last year banged up with, like, I believe McVay said, like, people don't know everything that Cup was playing through. And he did look a little slow and a little kind of off per se. And it's one of those things when you watch it, knowing it now, we knew it in the moment because it was incredibly frustrating as someone who had him last year in one of the Kings Classic leagues. They were never off by a lot. It was this freaking much every single time. And that means Stafford's got so used to him, something was just a wee bit off. And if they're going to be back on it this year, Puka's going to get his. But we've seen Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay run a very fantasy-friendly offense for multiple wide receivers. They've done it before. That defense should be a little bit better this year, so there may not be as many shootouts for the Rams. But Stafford is no stranger to multiple top receivers. So Cooper Kupp is going to be a ton of my teams, especially if his price holds.
Yeah, right, definitely. Now, interestingly enough, ADP-wise, Drake London is as high as 11. Marvin Harrison is high as 9. This is ADP's, not our rankings. Now, I loved Marvin Harrison as a Ohio State fan. I have him 19th only because, again, I'm kind of looking at the consistency. I feel like he's going to get the targets, but I also feel like teams are going to start double teaming him and say, okay, well, then we'll let Michael Wilson beat us. You know, I don't. He got double teamed in college, but I don't think college, you know, Big Ten cornerbacks aren't necessarily a thing. At least top cornerbacks. So that's why I have him a little lower. London, I have him 14th. I just have Pittman, DJ Moore, you know, Lavi, some of those guys ahead of him. Your thoughts on, you know, London and Harrison? You know, London now gets Kirk Cousins with a quote, he finally gets a real quarterback. Is that enough to put him in the top 12? I'm still, again, I'm not down on him. I'm just not believing he's top 12. Harrison, again, rookies, it can be done. I mean, Jamar Chase did it. We get it. Jamar Chase had Joe Burrow. Kirk Cousins good, but, you know, and there's a lot more options on that team. And back then, the Bengals basically just had Chase. So
I do like Drake London a lot. The problem, I think, with him is that he has become the narrative with Kirk Cousins has made him the trendy play. So he's getting pushed up a lot. I would imagine a couple weeks ago, or maybe, you know, coming into the season or maybe draft season before the Kirk Cousins and everything like that happened, maybe his price is a little bit more palatable. He's like at the high end of where I would be comfortable getting him. Just that's kind of where he settled into now, but he can be a alpha receiver in this league. He can make contested catches. Last year had pretty good drop rates in terms of being able to hold on to the ball. So I like the talent. He finally has the quarterback. We're just at the ceiling of my price point. For Marvin Harrison, elite talent, great situation. He's immediately going to step in as the wide receiver 1 on a team that's probably going to pass a lot because they're probably going to lose a lot. And they're going to need to score, or maybe not lose a lot. They are going to lose a lot of games, but they don't have a good enough defense so that you can have a little shootout potential there. Could we be seeing him get the alpha treatment and is doubled by week 4? Because outside of him, it's Michael Wilson, Trey McBride. I love McBride.
Trust me, when we get to tight ends, I'm drafting tons of McBride.
But I mean, he could get doubled right away and force Michael Wilson to beat you. And I mean, I like Michael Wilson too. This will be a good offense to get in. I as much as I like Marvin Harrison, when I look at other guys going around him, I just find myself gravitating to others. It's really not a knock. It's not even that I don't like Harrison. There's just other guys around I like more.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's like you have all these choices of Diggs, Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. You're like, do I take a rookie over these guys? You know, that's that's why I have him, like I said, at 19, because it's like, then I finally like, okay, now I feel comfortable that they're wide receivers that I would be back and forth on. A Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle. I mean, they're all good, but they're all the number twos. Well, Evans can be 1A.
And I'll tell you, with Harrison, what's going to be really fun is with the Cardinals opening the year with Bills, Rams, and Lions. We could have 3 shootouts right away to open the year. So you might, I mean, then you go Commanders, Niners, Packers, Chargers, Dolphins. I mean, there's a lot of teams that they're going to have to score on.
Yeah.
He could be, as much as I just said, I'm probably not drafting him. After week 3, he could be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, with the Cardinals being 0-3 and averaging like 27 points a game. It's very possible.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm hoping for from the Dolphins too. Dolphins lost like their entire defensive backfield, and that's what I'm really hoping with Tyreek and Waddle. And I've been drafting. So in 2 quarterback leagues, I'm always drafting 2 as my number 2 because I'm like, why not? As long as he can stay healthy. God, they're gonna have to throw the ton. All right, as we move into our next 12, again, ADP wise, there's some gaps. I go Pittman, DJ Moore, Drake London, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, Evans, Deebo Samuel, Marvin Harrison, Nico. I probably should move Nico up before you shoot me. Brandon Ayuk at 21, Keenan Allen 22, DK Metcalf 23, Devontae Smith 24. That's not how things line up on the ADPs. We have Brandon Ayuk as high as 15. We have Waddle at 19, Deebo's at 20, Cooper's at 22, Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors is at 24. I think that's high. Let's talk Brandon Ayuk at 15 ADP. I mean, I have him 21, and I still don't know if I'm going to draft him. Again, he may sign, he may not. It just seems like, if you remember, I kind of know John Lynch because I know John Lynch. Drop that name. And I remember talking to him 2 years in a row. And when Deebo had his first breakout season was when I actually drove John in Hall of Fame weekend. And he said Ayuk was just a bum. He just wasn't participating. He wasn't like into spring training. He wasn't into it. And John was very upset. I could tell if John was upset about it. Like, I don't know if he's going to make it. He just bad attitude and bad everything. But Deebo, he said, was great, was going to be awesome. And it worked out that way. Then the next year, I asked him the same question. And he said, Deebo's still Deebo. He's awesome. But he said, Ayuk's really turned it around. I really see Ayuk. And that was last year. And so we see Ayuk do that. But one, I don't believe he is a elite receiver. I don't think he should be paid as elite receiver. I mean, I think he might be Jalen Waddle money, but I don't think he's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase money. And I think that's what he wants. And I just don't believe he'll get it. I don't think he deserves it. And because of that, I'm just not drafting him at all, let alone at 15, probably not even at 21. What are your thoughts on Ayuk? Are you investing at all? Are you investing more in Samuel because of that? What are your thoughts on that San Francisco situation?
I don't have much exposure to either of them right now. Again, there's guys just around there that I've been targeting more. That's what it comes down to. I do like the San Francisco offense if Ayuk plays. I do think from a wide receiver perspective, Ayuk is better than Deebo Samuel. I think if Ayuk goes to another team where he is happy, I think he usurps whoever is there right away. He becomes the alpha wide receiver 1, and he commands targets like others do. However, there's a lot of mouths to feed in San Fran. That's just how it is. So I am not against Ayuk. I do like the talent. The situation is there. I think I've seen some beat writers have said that San Fran might be a little more pass heavy this season because they literally don't know what to do unless they give McCaffrey the ball and they want to ease up some of the workload on him. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, Ayuk and Samuel can both benefit. Like, they both have their matchups where they're going to, where they're both going to dominate. I think Ayuk is a very talented receiver. I would love some clarity with whatever's happening, as we kind of get closer here and just something. But if he's out there playing, his ADP, I know per NFFC, as we're looking at it here, he is at like 17. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we get confirmation, hey, No hard feelings. We're out there week 1, everything. I wouldn't be surprised to see him closer to 12 than 17, to be honest. I think he'll creep up.
Interesting. And let's take a look at our just 25 to 36, basically our wide receiver threes. I'll read, the rankings here from the book. T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, George Pickens, Malik Neighbors, Rashee Weiss, Zay Flowers, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed, Marquise Brown, Jordan Addison. Just outside of that, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin. I do not have Tank Dell in the top 36. Now I might change. You probably have changed my mind since you seemed. I didn't realize there was a friendship thing going on there with Mr. Stroud, so we might have to make some adjustments. But ADP wise, we have Cooper, Pickens, Flowers, Higgins, Dell, Kirk, McLaurin, Allen, Ridley, Reed, Hollywood, and Rashee back to back. Godwin and Deontay Johnson just outside that group. Any thoughts about anybody in that wide receiver 3 area that, well, we know you like Tank Dell. We'll leave that one go. Anybody else in there that you have been targeting as your wide receiver 3, or maybe even got lucky and got him as a 4? Maybe if you started off hot with the receiver world in your drafts. Any thoughts on those guys there?
Yeah, the ones that stand out the most, Christian Kirk, with no Ridley in Jacksonville anymore. He's in line. Guess where he also goes into the field a good bit, the slot. But what do we talk about that? So I like Christian Kirk a lot there as well. George Pickens is fine. I have no shares of Amari Cooper, nor will I have any of him. If Chris Godwin's going to go to the slot more, sign me up for him. But my 2 favorite values in like this outside of wide receiver 2, like we're in that wide receiver 3 territory. The 4 main ones that I really like the most are Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin with Jaden Daniels, who's one of my favorite quarterbacks this year, Tank Dell, and I'm going to die on the Deontay Johnson bridge this year. If he goes off, I'm going to do very well this year, and if he sucks, I'm going to do pretty poorly. That's just how it's going to be. But listen, Bryce Young can't be as bad as he was before. Good offensive mind coming in should help Bryce Young's development. Johnson's the alpha wide receiver 1 for that offense. So take a look at him as your wide receiver 3. I mean, I have some drafts where I've had him as my wide receiver 2 because I've waited so long. Like I'm confident in him this year.
That's aggressive.
It's aggressive, sure. But I just, like I said, it's one of those things where I am going to win because of my guys, or I'm going to lose because of my guys, and Deontay Johnson he seems to be one of them this year. That's just how it's going to be.
No, I've been drafting Deontay Johnson as a wide receiver 4 because he usually doesn't get that top 3. I've even gotten Godwin as a wide receiver 4 a couple times because, again, people are just like, I don't know why there's such a huge gap between Godwin and Evans. They used to be fairly close, and this year they're just like, obviously 12, 13, 14 places apart. Christian Kirk, yeah, I'm definitely in on him too. I mean, in the guide, I talk about the fact that, just 2 years ago when Ridley wasn't there, he was 12th in total points. Now his consistency it was the same as last year at 59%, but I think that'll go back up. I can see him being in that 67, 70%-ish and being, worthy of probably a wide receiver 2 numbers. Consistency and points. So yeah, I really like him a lot. And like you said, I'm Deontay Johnson. I'm all about that as well. Another one just outside of it, and I just want to kind of highlight, was Romeo Doubs. I don't know if you have any love for Romeo, but he is going way out there. And Jacoby Myers. They're actually back to back. ADP's 50 and 51. But Jacoby Myers last year was 24th in total points, 26th in consistency. I've gotten him as like my wide receiver 5s and 6s, and especially these big leagues. I got him in the Scott Fish Bowl. I wanted to say in round 18, something like that. Like just because nobody even picked him up. Romeo Doubs, Love seemed to like him a lot, especially in the playoffs when they needed the clutch plays. So he's not getting any love. It's all Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, which again are good receivers, but I feel like Doubs is, almost like Love's best friend, kind of like Tank Dell is Stroud's best friend. Any comments on those 2 before we close out here?
I don't know what to do with this Green Bay offense. Like, I like all of these pieces, but can't.
Yeah.
I don't find myself drafting any of them. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but like somehow a Jordan Love led offense is fantasy goodness. That's just how it is. And LaFleur's got that offense cooking. So I think you're going to want a piece of it. I think it's just a matter of how your draft looks. And Jacoby Myers just gets overlooked because he's boring. He's not flashy. He's not exciting. He's not the wide receiver one on his team. Right. And everyone's like, oh, well, let's poo-poo that and let's move up all these other guys. But like, I mean, last year over 800 yards, was it 8 touchdowns? And one could argue that if Gardner Minshew is in fact the starter, that is better because we saw Gardner Minshew sustain Michael Pittman last year, and Josh Downs had a couple of notable weeks, and even the corpse of Alec Pierce, despite him only being like a third-year player in the league, even had some memorable moments with him there. So Jacoby Myers isn't flashy. He's not a league winner, but it's one of those where you're going to look at the end of the year and be like, well, I'll be damned. He did 808 touchdowns again, or 7 touchdowns or whatever it is, and he'll return value. Because what's going to happen is, like, when we look at your list here that you'll see in the book, like Tank Dell's going to go above Myers. Deontay Johnson's going to go above Myers. People are going to push Curtis Samuel. They love their rookies. So Ladd McConkey's coming up. A lot of these rookies are coming up. Jacoby Myers is going to fall in someone's lap, and they may not even love it at the time, but come season end, it's like, wow, I never even looked at my wide receiver 4. I just left him in there every single week, got 11 points, and called it a day. Like, it's not flashy, but sometimes that wins matchup. So he's a good. I like him a lot. Yeah,
good deal. All right, well, Colby, thanks for joining me tonight. Always great to have you here. One of these days, we'll get all 3 of us on the same show at the same time. It doesn't seem to always work out that well, but that's why there's 3 of us, because we always have 2 that can pull it off. So, Colby, tell everybody where they can find you, and tell them about, once again, that you'll be drafting live in Charlotte this weekend at the Scott Fish Bowl, and we'll have to talk. We'll have a show next week. We'll talk about Scott Fish Bowl picks, but if we can get all of us together. But tell everybody they can find you.
Yep, at Colby Conway over on X. And like I said, I'll be at Scott Fish Bowl this weekend in Charlotte. I forget the name of the brewery off the top of my head, but I'll be there. I'll live mention or live tweet, live post some of the picks that I have and follow along. There'll be a couple Texans mixed in there. It's just a matter of which one. So keep an eye out at Colby Conway over on X for those updates this weekend.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Colby, for being a part of this as always. I'm at Bob_Lung on Twitter. Don't forget, folks, the fantasyfootballexpo.com. Tomorrow, we're 1 month away. July 9th, August 9th is our start date. So 1 month away from tomorrow. If you haven't got your tickets, make sure you get them soon. We'll be getting close. We start cutting off, not for ticket sales, but just make sure that you want to get your size shirt, because we only can buy so many after the fact. Make sure you get everything locked in now. So don't wait too long. thefantasyfootballexpo.com. And of course, don't forget to go to Amazon and get your fantasy football consistency guide. If you're a Prime member, you get it in 2 days. So getting ready for that drafts, and then come to Big Guy Fantasy Sports, get the season pass for only $10 more. That's right. There's a code in the book. Use that code. It's $10 for the whole season. You get all of us. We get everything. Prop it like it's hot. The DFS consistently cashing group, all that stuff, all the greatness that comes from Big Guy Fantasy Sports for only $10. You can't beat that deal, folks. So check it all out. Everybody, take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.